Welcome to the musculoskeletal system. There are 206 bones in the adult human. They provide support, store minerals, predominantly calcium, and lipids, this is the yellow bone marrow, produce blood cells, protect body organs, and provide leverage and movement. Now we're going to briefly go over the bones of the human body. We have that frontal bone, that's the forehead. The zygomatic bone, that's the cheekbone. The parietal bone, that's in the back of the head. The temporal bone is on the side of the skull. The occipital bone, the back of the head. The maxilla is the upper jaw. Mandible is the lower jaw. The clavicle is the collarbone. The scapula, shoulder blade. The cartilage is the cartilage in between the bones. The sternum, okay, which is the breastbone. We have the ribs. The humerus, that's the forearm. The vertebral column. Ulna is the lower arm on the finger side. You can see that right there. And the radius is the lower arm on the thumb side. You have your sacrum and coccyx, the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis. We have the carpal bones, those are the wrist bones. We have the metacarpals, and that's in the upper hand. And then the phalanges, those are the fingers. The femur is the thigh bone. Patella you'll find in the knee. The tibia, lower leg, larger bone. Fibula, lower leg, smaller bone. The calcaneus is the heel bone. Then you have the tarsals. These are your ankle bones in the upper foot. The metatarsals, and this is the forms the arch of the foot, and the phalanges are the toes. Now, there are 7 cervical vertebrae, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar. Okay. Now, C1 is the atlas and C2 is the axis, and these allow for greater range of motion than the other vertebrae. This is a vertebrae or a vertebra body. This is the anterior portion. The vertebral canal is also called the foramen, and the spinal cord passes through here. And this right here is so this is the anterior portion, this is the posterior portion. So these are just more bones. This is a larger look at the hand and foot. Okay. Now this talus right here, this is the ankle bone. It articulates with the tibia and fibula to form a hinge joint. So you can see those tarsals, the metatarsals, and the phalanges. Okay. And here's the hand. And right in here, okay, that's the carpometacarpal joint. This is the thumb. This is the index finger, second, third, and fourth finger. Right here is the metacarpophalangeal joint. And right here, these are the interphalangeal joints. This is the distal interphalangeal joint and the proximal interphalangeal joint. Okay. Now there are several types of bone. You have a flat bone, The main function is to provide protection for organs and a base for muscular attachment. You'll find it in the sternum, the scapula, pelvis, and ribs. Long bone. The body is longer than it is wide. There's a growth plate at either end. It's subject to most of the load-bearing responsibilities of everyday life. Besides the femur, you'll also find this in the humerus, tibia, metacarpals, metatarsals, and the phalanges. Now, the sesamoid bone. This is a short or irregular bone embedded in a tendon. Also a pisiform bone. It's the smallest of the carpals. This is you'll find this in the patella. An irregular bone, besides the vertebrae, you'll also find this in the sacrum and mandible. And the last one is the short bone. It's as wide as they are long. They primarily provide support and stability with little movement. And you'll see them in the carpals and tarsals. There are several types of cartilage. This is a type of connective tissue. The first one is the hyaline, and that's the most common. And everywhere you'll see red, that's where you'll find hyaline cartilage. It provides stiff but somewhat flexible support. Then you have the elastic, and that's in the blue, right over here by the ears. It provides support but can tolerate distortion without damage and returns to its original shape. And the last type is the fibrocartilage, and you'll find that wherever you see this green right here. It resists compression, prevents bone-to-bone contact, and limits relative movement. You'll find this within the knee joint, between the pubic bones of the pelvis, between the spinal vertebrae, and the pubis symphysis. Now, this articular cartilage of a joint covers the end of bone within a joint. And the costal cartilage, right here, you find it on the tips of ribs where they meet the sternum. There are also several types of muscles. Muscles are contractile tissues that bring about movements of different body parts. The first one is the cardiac muscle. It's automatic rhythmic contractions for a long period of time. It forms the myocardium. It's striated, involuntary, and uninucleated. The second type is the skeletal muscle, capable of rapid contractions but tire easily. They attach to the skeleton and they are voluntary. They're innervated by somatic nervous system. And the last type is the smooth muscle cell. There are no cross striations. It's involuntary. It's innervated by the autonomic nervous system. Regulate the internal environment related to digestion, circulation, secretion, and excretion. Respond slowly, but can sustain a contraction for a long time. They have multinucleated cylindrical cells containing groups of myofibrils. Myofibrils are composed of microfilaments. These are actin, myosin, and tropomyosin. There are several types of joints, and the joint is where two bones interconnect. Each joint reflects a compromise between stability and range of motion. For example, the bones of the skull are very stable but have little motion. The shoulder joint has full range of motion but is relatively unstable. Here's the pivot joint. One bone rotates around another. You'll see that in the atlantoaxial joint, where the proximal and distal radioulnar joints. Okay. Now, the next one is the hinge joint. Allows flexion and extension in just one plane, similar to a door hinge. You'll find that in the elbow between the humerus and ulna, the ankle tibia, and fibula and talus. The saddle joint permits the same movements as the condyloid joints but allow greater movement. You'll find this in the carpometacarpal or trapeziometacarpal joint and the sternoclavicular joint. The plane joint, it's a gliding joint. Allow only gliding or sliding movements. The carpals of the wrists, a acromioclavicular joint. The condyloid joint, where two bones fit together with an odd shape. One bone is concave, one is convex. These joints allow flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction movements. The radiocarpal joint. And the last one is the ball and socket joint. It allows for all movements except gliding. You'll find this in the shoulder, glenohumeral, and hip joints. And let's talk about a tendon versus a ligament. So, tendons connect muscle to bone, and ligaments connect bone to bone. This right here is the acromion of the scapula. This is the clavicle. Okay? And by the way, we're looking at the rotator cuff right here. And in between here is the acromioclavicular ligament, bone to bone. Now this capsular ligament right here surrounds the shoulder joint. This is the head of the humerus. Right in here is the glenoid cavity or fossa. It's a depression on the head of the scapula.